Hi guys, it's Pavi. Hope you guys are all well. I just really wanted to address some of the desperation in a lot of the establishment media in trying to defend Yannick Sinner after he took a lengthy break when he was on the verge of retiring in his match against Elliot Spizzirri. The likes of Jill Gross, Andy Roddick, Tennis Podcast, the usual suspects. These are the outlets that defended him when he failed 2 drug tests. So you know that they've been tasked to defend him again. And what they are doing is exactly that. Now, it's really, really important what happened on a couple of days ago with regards to the heat index hitting 5, because all of these are kind of working together. Now, how the establishment work is they all have a kind of a set mantra. So if there's a big issue, a lot of them kind of collude and they'll say the same things. So this is how basically propaganda forms. I don't know if they've got a WhatsApp group or whether it's a little bit more sophisticated, whether they have secret Fabian signs or whatever. I don't know. But whenever you see a big incident and it goes against establishment narratives or against someone that needs protecting, they all come out in force and they say the same thing. So what they're saying now over and over again is, this heat rule's been in place for 2019. It was all the courts, it was very, very fair. And yes, Yannick Sinner got a little bit lucky, but it's all fair. All these conspiracy theories saying this and saying that. Now, it makes me laugh. Now, they are absolutely right. This heat rule was brought into place in 2019. And I agree with that. I think it's a really, really good rule. I don't think players should be playing in ridiculously hot weather. Now, when Yannick Sinner was set to play Elliot Spizzirri and in line with the weather forecast, it wasn't actually the hottest part of the day. So the hottest part of the day was actually later on in the evening, early evening, late afternoon. The time similar to when Djokovic was playing. When Sinner was playing, the temperature it wasn't perceived to be that high. Now, for a play to be suspended, it has to hit heat index 5. Now, at the time, the ESPN had shown a symbol which had connections to the heat index, which showed a heat index of 4, which means play can continue. Now, Sinner was at this stage really, really struggling. So a lot of you have seen the footage when he was 2-1 down. He was barely able to walk. So this was very, very reminiscent to what happened to him in Shanghai, where he had to essentially retire against Greek Sport because he couldn't walk. So it was the same again. It wasn't like, this cramping, and Yannick Sinner has said himself he doesn't know what it is. But it impacts his legs and arms. And he looks as though he's like got paralyzed and it's some serious injury. So he went over to his box and said, I don't know what I can do here. I can barely walk. What do you want me to do? And he was on the verge of retiring. Now, Darren Cahill clearly says, you've got to finish this set. You've got to finish this set, he said. Even if you walk the set, don't worry about anything. I'll take the blame. Now, Yannick Sinner's 24, so he's still young. If you're a coach or a trainer of any professional athlete and they look in distress, a normal person would say, you know what, forget about it. It's a game, it's a tournament, you're not well. If you're not well, retire. Okay, that's what I would do. I think any normal person would probably say, if we don't want to prolong injury, we don't know what's going on. It could be cramp, it could be something else. But if you can't walk, if you can't move, you're playing in a Grand Slam best of 5, it's still relatively early in the match, then you shouldn't continue. But Darren Cahill was very, very explicit and said, you must continue. So that's the first red flag for me, okay, with Darren Cahill's response. The second red flag is the timing that the heat index went from 4 to 5. Now remember, ESPN have just shown on their screen that the heat index was 4. Yannick Sinner now loses. He's gone 3-1 down. He can barely walk. So he is literally probably seconds or minutes away from retiring in that match. And therefore he would be out of the Australian Open in the round 3, which would be an absolute nightmare for sponsors who have invested millions in Yannick Sinner. Okay, that's another point. Now, it just happened at the point where he was about to retire that this heat index suddenly goes to 5. Okay. Now you might think, okay, well, it was just maybe it was just a bit of luck, maybe that, but the Rod Laver court was the very first. As soon as the umpire said, "Oh, it's 5," they stopped the game. The Massetti game carried on for 2 games, so this was the very first one. It was almost like they were desperate to stop play. And how did Darren Cahill know just the seconds before when he kept on saying to Sinner, "Don't worry, don't worry, it's going to be okay"? Had he had a message from someone to say the heat index is going up to 5? Now, do we know that? Do we know if this is electronically operated, manually operated? Do we know all the details that go into the heat index as residual temperatures as well, humidity? There's various factors that make this heat index go to 5. Who is in charge of that? Because I would like to know, because the timing of it is very, very suspicious. I haven't got an issue with the rule itself. I think it's a good rule if it's used correctly, but I find the timing of it suspicious. And the reason why I find it suspicious is you just look at the history in the last year. Exactly 12 months ago, Yannick Sinner had just lost the second set against Holger Rune. It was another really, really hot day. And again, the heat index was kind of 4, just under 5. And all of a sudden, Sinner started looking towards his box. There was no kind of obvious injury, but he decided to take a medical timeout. He went off court just when Rune was getting on top of Sinner. He was out playing in and left Rune to roast in heat index 4 for 10 minutes. Paul McNamara actually tweeted the other day, who said it was actually last year he actually was off for 11 minutes, but for a lengthy time. 10, 11 minutes is huge for a professional athlete when you're playing in the sport, and have that longer break, especially in the heat for Rune. And Rune afterwards said that he roasted out there and he just wasn't the same. Sinner came back and he was full of energy again. And he went on to win the match, and he went on to win the title. Grigor Dimitrov was 2-0 up against Yannick Sinner, cruising against Yannick Sinner. Yannick Sinner was moaning a little bit about his elbow. There was over 1 hour left of light. Dimitrov goes 2 sets to live up, and Wimbledon decided that now was the time to close the roof. Andy Murray, I put on my Twitter today, he actually said at the time that decision was ludicrous because there was over 1 hour of light left. So they could have still played that set. They could have completed that set, and Dimitrov was on the verge of beating Sinner in straight sets. The roof is closed. It's another 10-15 minute break. Sinner comes out sprightly. He looks fine. No elbow issues now. But obviously that time delay has impacted Grigor Dimitrov. We saw the same happen against Felix Auger-Aliassime in the US Open. When Sinner was losing, he asked for a medical timeout. Now the same has happened here against Elliot Spizzirri. He was outplaying Yannick Sinner. I watched the first part of that match. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But Yannick Sinner has gone from not being able to walk. He takes an 8-minute break with the roof being inputted. We don't know at this stage where Yannick Sinner went. He's told us in a press conference that he was in a room with no access to IV drips, no access to anything. Okay, but he got back. Now another red flag is Darren Cahill is in conversation with Craig Tiley, the tournament director. They are friends. What is he talking to him about? Now, I could tell you what he might be talking to him about is if there's a heat index 4, at the end of a set, you can get a 10-minute break. But at 3-1, they were playing the rest of that set, the majority of that set, under air-conditioned surroundings. So there was no heat index in play. But yet they still got an extra 10 minutes after that set had finished. Now that is a big deal, because when Sinner came back, he was still had the effects of cramping. After that second 10-minute break, he came back and they had no signs of cramping. He looked as fresh as a daisy. So you've got 4 incidences there where you think something doesn't quite seem right here. You look at it. Why was Cahill telling Sinner to continue? Almost like he knew the heat index was going to go from 4 to 5. The heat index suddenly goes to 5 when Sinner is on the verge of retiring. We're talking minutes away, and he was going to retire from that match. Sinner then disappears for 8 minutes. He told us he was on his own. I'm not so sure. They then get another 10-minute break at the end of set 3. So he's almost had a 20-minute break. And after that 20 minutes, Sinner looks fresh, and, compound to that, the biggest red flag of all is that just over a year ago, Yannick Sinner failed 2 drugs tests for a banned performance-enhancing supplement, Clostebol. And he gave the craziest story that I have ever heard in the doping world. And professional athletes are renowned for providing crazy stories. Sara Errani's mum's food that she provided is probably one of the worst, but this one was absolutely insane. In that, so Yannick Sinner was telling us that he got contaminated from his physio, who didn't know how to treat a cut to a pinky finger, and it was that bad that he went to Umberto Ferreira to ask for some magic ointment and decided to use this cream or spray for 8 consecutive days. If the cut was that bad, why did you not get it stitched? Why did you not get it stitched up? If it wasn't that bad, why don't you just put a normal plaster like every other normal person would be, instead of this Trophobodin, which Umberto Ferreira was magically carrying for personal reasons to this day we still don't know. So there is a number of red flags, and there's a number of people in the tennis world who have contacted me and have said, Pavi, before we thought you were a little bit of a conspiracist, we can actually see that what you're saying now is stacking up. And this is why the likes of Andy Roddick, Jill Gross, tennis podcasts are panicked now, because they now have to work extra hard to convince people of their propaganda. So you're going to see their videos to say it was a rule. They're not going to mention. Have they mentioned Darren Cahill speaking to Craig Tiley? Have they mentioned the timing of the heat index? Have they mentioned it was the first match that went off in Australia? Yes, the other matches followed. This one was the first one. Have they mentioned his history, where he's had also amazing bouts of luck? And remember, they believe his drug story. So, you've got to look one step ahead here. People might think I'm a conspiracist or a loon, or, I'm doing this because I'm worried that Sinner's going to break all of Djokovic's records, which makes absolutely no sense. And let me tell you this, Sinner is on 4 Grand Slams. Okay, he's 24 years old. He's going to be 25. Alcaraz is younger than Sinner and has 6 Grand Slams. So if this theory was that I'm really worried that Sinner is going to surpass Djokovic's 24 Grand Slams, then surely I'd want Sinner to win, because Alcaraz is younger than him, has got more slams. So that holds absolutely no weight whatsoever. My main passion is that I love the sport of tennis and I hate corruption. And this is something that means a lot to me, which is why I'm going to keep using my platform to try and give you different perspectives. Now, you can go away and you might think Pav's a complete loon. I don't believe what he's saying. But if you don't believe me, just look at the evidence stacking up. And it will continue to stack up. Because everything that they say, I don't believe anymore. I don't believe it. Darren Cahill came out and said for this match that he played today, they didn't have any issues where it was played. It could have been played in the heat of the sun, whatever. I don't believe that. And Laura Robson and Tim Henman on TNT were saying the same thing. Jamie Murray's like, this is BS. Of course they would. Of course they would have said, we want to play in the night game. We don't want to play in the heat of the sun. And lo and behold, Sinner played the night game. He also played a Margaret Court, which is a faster surface than Rod Laver. So which would have meant the game was a lot shorter, so you're conserving energy. Jamie Murray called it out today. So just look at the facts. That's all I'm asking of you, because I'm sick to death of everyone in the tennis establishment getting their propaganda forward, and they get rewarded for it. They get job opportunities. We look at Owen Lewis. He literally, all he does is preach liberal activism stuff, and he gets accredited. You know, tennis podcasts were fast-tracked accreditation at Wimbledon. I've known experienced journalists that are fully trained, that have been in there for years in their trade, and they don't get accredited for Wimbledon. The tennis podcasts do. Joe Gross is now working for the Tennis Channel. Andy Roddick has had huge investments for his Served with Andy Roddick podcast. Where's all this money coming from? Follow the money. Look what the opportunities are getting, and look at anyone who tries to speak against that propaganda. They'll get vilified, they'll get threatened, they'll get deplatformed if they're in the media, they'll lose job opportunities. Just look at the amount of toxicity that Jamie Murray got today for simply saying that he doesn't believe that Jannik Sinner and his team wouldn't have asked when they would have preferred to have played. And as a two-time defending and champion of Australian Open, he probably has the right to do that as well. But just be honest. Just be honest to the fans for once, right? That's all I'm going to have on the subject. All I'm saying to you is think ahead, think outside the box. Just because the BBC says something, or you know the tennis podcast says something, it doesn't mean it's right. You know, they are trying to deflect what are serious red flags surrounding the whole of that heat index rule, the nearly 20-minute break that Jannik Sinner had, the conversations between Craig Tiley and Darren Cahill. There is a lot of red flags, and the reason why there's more red flags than there would be for any other circumstances, because if you look at the past history in the last 2 years, a number of these stories are mounting up. Keep your eyes peeled. Everyone in the tennis industry as well, keep your eyes peeled. And if you know anything, you must speak out. You must speak out. Otherwise, we're going to lose the sport forever. Take care. God bless wherever you are. Keep enjoying the Australian Open. Obviously, quarterfinals are starting in the next couple of days. That's going to be real fun, and I'll be back with a video soon. Take care. God bless. Bye.